PFL 5 this Friday from the Huntsman Center in Salt Lake City, Utah. We have the lightweights and the light heavyweights having their second regular season fight in the main event. In the lightweight division, Clay Collard versus Mads Burnell. And in the co-main event, you can see it on the screen, we've got the PFL light heavyweight champion last year in Impa Kasanganay taking on the PFL Europe champion last year in Nedoh. We are going to see who is going to make the playoffs in both of these weight classes as we go on through this video. And folks, if you haven't yet though, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more MMA here on the channel. Yesterday, we posted our UFC Fight Night Saudi Arabia predictions with Robert Whitaker and Ikram Aliskerov in the main event. And later today, hopefully, we should have our Bellator Dublin predictions. If it doesn't come out today, it will be tomorrow, just depending how my day goes with timing. But we have that video up on the channel. Link is in the description down below with Whitaker and Aliskerov. And now we get on to this PFL 5 card, and we start things off here with 3 featured bouts. Our first one being Zurcher taking on Julian Ruiz. This one is an easier one to see who the winner is going to be. Zurcher is 8-0 and 4-0 in the PFL. And again, Bellator has done this all the time. The PFL does it too. They have guys they want to win fights, and they have guys they want to build up slowly. Zurcher is a guy who will probably be in the PFL season next year, I would think. Again, depending on how things go in the featherweight division, but he's taking on Julian Ruiz, who is 4-0, who has not fought in PFL just yet. He's been fighting in various promotions, but mainly the promotion called Fierce. Last fight beat a guy who's 3-4 over in Fierce over in Ogden, Utah. I believe he's a local guy to the Utah area. So again, that's the reason he is on this card, the reason they found him. Again, Zurcher is going to go in there and absolutely destroy the guy, though. We have him winning by second round TKO. Again, the Mexican-born fighter is 8-0. Again, he really hasn't shown too many weaknesses yet in the PFL. He's fought twice in Lux, given against not the best guys. He fought a guy who was 2-6 and then a guy who was 14-13 in Lux. But what he's been able to do in the PFL is pick up victories, and they again have been building him up slowly against guys they know he's going to beat. Julian Ruiz is a guy the PFL knows that Zurcher is going to be able to beat. We're going to take Zurcher to win this fight by second round TKO. We go on to our next feature bout here. We have got Andrew Sanchez taking on Carl Albrektsson in this fight. We're going to be going with Albrektsson from Sweden to take this one. This is a guy who, again, fought in Bellator prior to the merger with Bellator and the PFL. He last fought outside of both those promotions. He fought in Superior Challenge against an 11-8 fighter over in Sweden in the main event. He won their light heavyweight championship by knockout in the first round. This is a guy who owns a win over Dufort Yagshimuradov, a guy who is in the PFL season right now and who is in prime positioning to make the playoffs. That's who Albrektsson holds a win over. He's got a win over Victor Nemkov. He's got a win, he's got losses in Bellator to Phil Davis, Carl Moore, and Grant Neal. But Albrektsson has fought good guys in Bellator. And now you match him up here with El Dierte, Andrew Sanchez, who is a former UFC fighter. He went 5-5 over there. He's come on over now to the PFL, and he's 1-0, picking up a split decision victory over Taylor Johnson last year in the PFL season. He won once in Eagle FC in 2022 as well. But I just think Albertson's better. I wouldn't be surprised, again, if Albrektsson finishes this fight quicker than I think it's going to. I'm going with Albrektsson by second round TKO. It's just, again, his power on the feet is going to be a lot better than Sanchez. He's got better striking. And for Andrew Sanchez, this is a guy who's been knocked out 5 times. When you look back at his UFC run, the last 2 losses he had were both knockout finishes. A TKO loss to Bruno Silva in 2021, and then 9 months prior to that, a flying knee knockout on the Conor McGregor Dustin Poirier 2 card against Mahmoud Muradov, where he got flying knee and knocked out in the 3rd round. Again, Sanchez is the type of fighter that's going to stand and brawl with you, but he's not. Again, he's willing to take a punch, and unfortunately, that's what's going to hurt him too. Again, you want to go back to the beginning of his UFC run, a head kick knockout loss to Anthony Smith in 2017 and another knockout loss in 2017 to Ryan James. The guy has been knocked out a lot. The only loss he had in the UFC that was not by knockout was actually to Marvin Vettori. But again, Sanchez gets knocked out. He gets hit a lot. Albertson's a guy who's going to bring it to him. You saw his last knockout finish in Superior Challenge. He's got all the capability in the world. This is a guy who is pretty big for the light heavyweight division as well. I think he's going to go in there and really just run through Andrew Sanchez, who is getting up there in age. He's 36. Albertsson goes in there and wins the fight by second round TKO. We go on to our last feature bout, our last showcase bout that does not have any impact on the season. We've got Anthony Romero taking on Sergio Cossio in this fight. We're going with Romero to win the fight by decision. Now, Anthony Romero is a guy who's supposed to take on Espinoza on the first PFL card of the year. It was supposed to be a showcase bout. Espinoza, of course, got rebooked, and now here he is again in a position where if he wins his next fight, he will be in the PFL playoffs. But Romero got his shot in the PFL season last year. He had to take on OAM, Olivier Aubin-Mercier, who was the back-to-back champion in the lightweight division for the PFL. He ended up losing the fight by knockout in the third round with a knee. Again, it's going to happen to you when you fight Olivier Aubin-Mercier. He won the PFL Challenger Series in 2023, and this is a guy who I thought the UFC fumbled. I thought he should have been in the UFC. He did really well in Fury. He was racking up a lot of wins over there. He won on the Contender Series against a UFC fighter. I don't think he's with the UFC anymore, but a guy in Mike Breeden who's coming off a win over Anshul Jubilee in his last fight in the UFC. And again, Romero beat Breeden back in 2020. He beat a PFL name in Zach Jusula by split decision in LFA as well. The guy has racked up a lot of good victories, and unfortunately for him in the PFL, he just ran to OAM, but there's no shame in that. Again, I think Romero's a guy who is deserving of a shot in the season again. If not, again, give him just a run in Bellator. And this is the fight he's going to win. Sergio Cossio is 26-9-1. He's fought once in Bellator. That was his last fight where he beat Jesse Roberts by mounted triangle choke in the third round. He was an underdog in that fight, and again, Cossio does have the ground game, but I just think all around Romero is the much better fighter. This is a very well-balanced guy. He's able to win fights in the feet. He's able to grapple as well. I really do like the game out of Romero. Again, it's going to be primarily the striking game that's going to win him fights, which I don't think is a problem in this fight. I think Romero is able to stuff takedowns, and I think he's just able to outbox and out-kickbox Cossio for 15 minutes, and I do think that's where he ends up getting the win and the decision. We're going to go with the Canadian, Anthony Romero, to win this fight by unanimous decision as we move on now to the season bouts, and this is where stuff starts to matter. Our first fight, Michael Dufort taking on Adam Piccolotti. Now, Dufort comes into this bout with already 5 points in the PFL season after his big upset victory over Mads Burnell on the first card of 2024 for the lightweights, and we are going with Dufort to win by submission again. This time, we're taking him to win the fight by first round submission. I think he gets it done pretty early against Piccolotti in this fight. I didn't know how good Dufort was going into his last fight. I will be honest with you. Again, I think a lot of people thought Mads Burnell was going to run right through him. No one truly knew how good Dufort was because the level of competition he had faced prior to the PFL wasn't the greatest. Yes, he beat Violent Bob Ross, Luis Pena. Yes, he beat Joe Giannetti, but those are guys who have been washed out of the UFC. How good was Dufort truly? Well, we saw in the Burnell fight getting that guillotine choke in the second round. The guy's legit, right? He is legit, and now they are, I feel like, kind of gifting him a matchup here in Piccolotti. Piccolotti's been beat on the ground before. Yes, he does have the ground game in his own right, but we've seen Mansour Barnouai go in there and finish him on the ground. We've seen Elvin Espinoza in his last fight finish him on the feet. I think Piccolotti's very beatable, and I think this is a very winnable fight for the guy who currently holds the #1 seed in the PFL lightweight division right now, Michael Dufort. I think Dufort wins it, and I don't think it's all that competitive. I think he gets the fight down. I think he just drowns Piccolotti down there. That's how good I think the ground game is of Michael Dufort. And again, everything that we've seen through, again, his fights against Giannetti, Pena, the fights that he's had, I believe, in CFFC as well, and even his 2 fights in the PFL with the Challenger Series and with his last fight against Burnell, everything kind of points to a Dufort victory in this fight, and I think that's what's going to happen. I'm taking Michael Dufort to win the fight by first round submission, and how does this affect the table? Well, it really doesn't, in all fairness. Dufort came into this fight in first place with 6 points, and he's basically notched up the 1 seed already. Dufort basically, again, has punched his ticket to the playoffs, and he's punched his ticket as the #1 seed in the lightweight division. Dufort at the top of the table with 11 points, and again, clinching a spot in the PFL lightweight playoffs. As we move on to our next fight here, we go back to the lightweight division here for back-to-back fights. Rabadanov taking on Elvin Espinoza. The winner of this fight is in the playoffs. Basically, it gets tricky if you're Rabadanov, but essentially the winner is in and the loser's out. And we are going to pick Rabadanov to win the fight. Again, it's hard picking against this guy, right? He's undefeated in Bellator, undefeated in PFL, 7-0 combined in those 2 promotions. And yes, Elvin Espinoza is 10-0, but he has not fought anybody of the caliber of Rabadanov. This guy's very good. He's going to go in there and he's going to drown you. He's going to drown you with the striking. He's going to drown you with the wrestling. It's all that pressure that Rabadanov going to bring to you. And I just don't know if Elvin Espinoza is ready for that step up yet, right? You can get wins over Keone Diggs. You can get wins over Adam Piccolotti. But Rabadanov, again, just goes in there and melts guys. Again, he's on a big winning streak right now. You go back to his first PFL season bout where he beat Solomon Renfro, beats Peter Bust before that, beats Koji Takeda over on the Bellator Rising card, beats Bobby King, beats JJ Wilson, all by decision. Again, Rabadanov's not likely going to go out there and get the finish, but he's just going to go in there and he's going to melt you, and he's going to make it tough on you to get your game off. Seriously, like, it's going to be tough for Elvin Espinoza to go in there and either, again, Espinoza is one of these guys who can strike and who can grapple too. We've seen it in the past in the PFL. We've seen him go out there and win by knockout. We've seen him go out there and win by submission. I just don't know how he gets either or against Rabadanov unless he lands a big shot. I don't think he's going to do that. I think Rabadanov, what he does so well is neutralizes his opponent's games. And I think he goes out there and uses the Sambo. Again, it's going to be primarily a grappling attack out of Rabadanov, and I think it's going to work. The Sambo is going to play off huge for Rabadanov in this fight, and it's just tough to beat this guy. Again, it just truly is. I think he goes out there and wins the fight by decision. He has not clinched a playoff spot just yet because, again, the way the PFL does things is if you get one first-round finish, so say randomly Solomon Renfro wins this fight by first-round knockout. I'm not saying he's going to, but this uses it as an example. Renfro wins the fight by first-round knockout. That has more weight than two decisions for Rabadanov. Even though Rabadanov has beat Solomon Renfro in this season as well, it doesn't make too much sense, but a 1-1 Solomon Renfro with one first-round finish does hold more weight than two decision victories for Rabadanov. So Rabadanov has not clinched a playoff spot just yet, but he's put himself in great positioning. Gadzhi Rabadanov in second place with 6 points. We go on to our next one here in the light heavyweight division. Unfortunately, a fight that just really doesn't matter. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because, again, it just doesn't matter. Sadabusi's been around the PFL for a very long time. He's been in every single season. He has had this will be walk number 20 for Sadabusi inside the PFL Smart Cage. He's been around for a very long time. Unfortunately, he's coming off back-to-back losses. Now, again, his last fight was a first-round TKO loss to Josh Silveira. But, again, it's a injury. It's a thumb injury for Sadabusi. Silveira gets his 6 points in a 1-minute finish in that fight. However, again, not entirely the work of Silveira, not at all actually the work of Silveira, and just the injury for Sadabusi. Sadabusi was coming off of the loss in the PFL welterweight division where he lost the championship fight to Magomed Karamov by guillotine choke in the third round. Of course, Sadabusi now, again, has jumped from 170 all the way to 205. I thought he was going to beat Josh Silveira. Again, the fight really just didn't get to play out. So I'm not putting weight into that at all. What we do know about Sadabusi, he has worked on his striking. He's always been a good striker, but he's been working on putting more power in his shots. And now he's taken on a guy in Tom Breese who is coming off a first-round knockout loss to Rob Wilkinson in his last fight. That does not bode well for him in this fight. He's fighting basically 2 months after just getting knocked out against Rob Wilkinson. What do you expect to happen when you take on a guy in Sadabusi who can strike? He's a lanky fighter who is going to go out there and he's going to try to put damage in his shots, obviously, right? Stylistically, it's a horrible matchup for Tom Breese. Breese is a guy who wants to grapple, and yes, that's where he will have an advantage in this fight. I just don't think he's able to shoot inside on a guy in Sadabusi who's just so long. I understand, again, they are both 6'3", but Sadabusi's going to have an 8-inch reach advantage in this fight, which is just going to make it tough for Tom Breese to close distance in this fight. And I think with that being said, Sadabusi's going to be able to keep his distance, use his kickboxing, and again, Sadabusi's going to do what Sadabusi does best, and that's strike. And again, if he can just implement some of that power game, he is going to get that finish, and I do think he gets it done by first round knockout. However, as we look at the standings, it really doesn't do much because I don't think Sadabusi is going to get a 1-minute finish. I don't think he's going to get it in the second minute, nor do I think it's going to happen in the third. I think it's going to be a late first round knockout finish. I think he'll get it quicker than how Antonio Carlos Jr. got his first round submission victory on the first PFL or light heavyweight card of the season. However, Sadabusi with 6 points and say a finish within, I don't know, in the 4th minute of the fight still puts him behind Wilkinson, Silveira, Yagshimuradov, and the champion Impa Kasanganay, basically eliminating Sadabusi. I think he wins by first round knockout, but I do think he is mathematically eliminated from the playoffs and winning the championship and the $1 million. And that's what, again, is going to put Sadabusi in 6th place. Again, he'll be ahead of Antonio Carlos Jr. For now. However, again, All these guys are yet to fight. Sadibou is the first fight of this light heavyweight run. And again, I think he wins, but it doesn't do much for him. Sadibou C will win the fight. However, he's not making the playoffs. Sadibou C, though, with 6 points and currently in 5th place. Okay, we go back to the lightweight division here. Brent Primus taking on Solomon Renfro. Now, Brent Primus looked really good in his last fight. I predicted that one right. I thought he was going to get the submission victory over Bruno Miranda. I think we might have got it bang on the button. Yeah, we did. Second round submission victory for Brent Primus, exactly the way we saw it. And again, we've been really good picking the PFL, by the way. Last card, we went 10-1. The only loss being the Vatian Moldavsky fight, which I thought Moldavsky won. Again, we've been hitting every single PFL card. It's, I think I'm like 55-15 on the last 70 PFL fights we've had this year, including PFL MENA, including PFL Europe. We've been doing very well in the PFL picks. However, we go back to this fight. Brent Primus taking on Solomon Renfro. It's a tough fight for Solomon Renfro. Again, Renfro wants to strike, and I just don't know if he's going to be able to get that in this one. It is weird looking back on it. Solomon Renfro did get knocked out by Adam Fugit. That's the fight that ultimately put Fugit in the UFC and not Solomon Renfro. It was an LFA card headlined by, get this, Jacqueline Amorim, of all people. For the LFA Strawweight Championship. But Renfro has struggled some in the PFL, right? Again, he made the playoffs last year because he got a second round knockout victory over Gerard Hossein Al-Sawali in his last one in 2023. Then he had to fight in the playoffs against Magomed Karamov. He lost. Now he's down from 70 to 55. And he was a slight dog in his fight against Gadzhi Rabadanov, but of course he lost the fight by decision. Now you just get Brent Primus, who's going to go in there and he's just going to grapple you, and it really doesn't bode well, I don't think, for Solomon Renfro. I do think ultimately Renfro is able to go the full 15 against Brent Primus, but I just don't know where he wins. Again, he has to keep the fight standing and he has to find a way to knock Brent Primus out. I just don't see it at all. I think Primus is able just to grapple him. And yeah, again, it's tough to fight this guy. Again, he's a very strong guy who's going to go in there. He's going to use jiu-jitsu. He's going to use his top positioning effectively, and he's just going to make it hell for you. And that's what Brent Primus is going to do for Solomon Renfro. Primus knows going into this fight, he does not need to get a finish to make the playoffs in advance. All he needs to do is just win the fight by decision and pick up a victory. And that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to go in there and he's going to put on the wrestling boots, and he's just going to go out there and win a 30-27 decision victory over Renfro. As we look again at the playoffs, Brent Primus puts himself in second place. He has clinched a playoff spot in the process. Michael Dufort again has locked up that number 1 seed, but Primus has put himself in second place, knocking Gadzhi Rabadanov down to the 3 spot. We'll see how again that gets affected as this card goes on. But Brent Primus doing what he needs to do, winning the fight by decision against Solomon Renfro and winning 3 more points, putting himself at 8 total. Again, putting Brent Primus in second place in this PFL lightweight table. To our next fight here, we go back to the light heavyweight division. We have got the former champion Antonio Carlos Jr. taking on Alex Easy Polizzi. I think Antonio Carlos Jr. is a very tough out for everybody in the weight class. I'll be honest with you. This guy's jiu-jitsu is very tough to deal with. Yes, Polizzi has never been finished in his mixed martial arts career yet by submission. He's been knocked out twice, and Kasanganay did in his last fight, and Yoel Romero did it back in Bellator in 2022. But I do think Antonio Carlos Jr. is the first guy to submit him. I think he does do it in the first round. If I'm being honest with you, I do think he does get it done in the first. I think it's going to be a very tough fight for Carlos Jr. still. I think Polizzi's not an easy guy to finish on the ground. However, I think he gets it done within the fourth and with 30 seconds left in the first round. I do think Carlos Jr. ends up getting that sub. He's a very tough guy for everybody in the weight class. He's a difficult matchup just because of his grappling. He will make it very tough on a lot of guys. Again, Simon Biyong saw it firsthand in their last fight. Again, Carlos Jr. got the finish with 30 seconds left in the first round. That's why he's currently, with the Sadibou C victory, in 6th place in the division. Now, again, with 6 more points, it will put him at 12. Again, Antonio Carlos Jr. felt like he was in great positioning to win back-to-back championships in 2022. He had to withdraw with his fight with Omar Yakhmedov in the playoffs. Again, he won the championship in 2021, beating Martin Hamlet in the championship fight by submission in the first round. Again, this guy's grappling is unlike anyone else's in the weight class. It truly is. I would like to see him against Kasanganay because Kasanganay's got very good defensive wrestling, and I think it's a very fun stylistic matchup, and even Rob Wilkinson. And again, with the reality of things, that's likely what we're going to see in the playoffs. We're going to see some of these fun matchups with these guys who are the top light heavyweights in the PFL because, again, they just don't want them fighting each other in the regular season. Unlike, again, the fight that we're going to get to in a second with Rob Wilkinson and Josh Silveira. That's the fight to weed one of these guys out. But But I think Shoeface wins. I don't think it's all that, controversial of a pick. Polizzi hasn't won a fight since 2022. He's lost 3 in a row to Kasanganay, Carl Moore, and Yoel Romero. Carlos Jr. goes in there and absolutely just neutralizes the game of Polizzi. He took a lot of damage in the Kasanganay fight, but Carlos Jr. is going to grapple with him. And with that being said, Antonio Carlos Jr. doubles up on the quick sixes. He puts himself in first place in the PFL light heavyweight bracket or tournament, or table, whatever way you want to put it, standing, same thing. Shoeface in first place with 12 points. He has locked up his spot in the PFL playoffs. We will see how the rest of the thing goes, but the way you see it, for the top 5 guys, Carlos Jr., Wilkinson, Silveira, Yagshimuradov, Kasanganay, all you have to do is win. Win and you are in. The finish, again, affects your standings and affects who your matchup in the playoffs is. But for those top guys, it is win and you're in. Carlos Jr. has done just that with his first round submission victory. To our next one, we are sticking in the light heavyweight division. Dufort Yagshimuradov taking on Simon Biyong. I have not been all that impressed with Dufort Yagshimuradov. I thought Nedoh was going to pull off the upset, or at the time I think that he was a favorite. Yes, I thought Nedoh was going to go out there and knock him out in the first round. Again, Yagshimuradov kind of showed that the level of fighter in PFL Europe is not that great. Because again, Nedoh is the champion over there. And we're going to get to Nedoh's next fight later on in the co-main event. But this is a guy who smoked everyone in PFL Europe. He won every fight by first round knockout except for the Simeon Powell fight where he won by second round knockout. Again, we're going to talk about Powell later, either today or tomorrow in the Bellator Dublin, Ireland card. But again, Nedoh smoked guys in the PFL Europe, and Dufort knocked him out early in the first. Now Dufort gets Simon Biyong. Now, Biyong's a guy who's lost 3 out of 5. He's lost back-to-back fights to Jose Augusto and Antonio Carlos Jr. I thought Biyong was the worst guy in this PFL season. I thought he was. I thought he was worse than Polizzi. I thought if you ranked all the fighters, I would put Biyong in 10th. That's why Dufort Yagshimuradov is going to win the fight by decision. He's just going to win everywhere in this fight. He's probably going to win a stand-up fight that I don't think is all that entertaining. Biyong's got a chin. He's never been finished on the feet. That's why I do think he goes the distance. But ultimately, Yagshimuradov gets 3 more points and he puts himself in second place. Again, winning, you're in. That's all Duvort's got to do in this fight. Again, he put himself in great positioning by beating Nedoh in the first round. I think the PFL thought that Nedoh was going to win that fight by first round knockout. Again, Dufort flipped the script on him, and he did end up getting the finish in the first. But I don't think he's able to finish Biyong. I think Biyong's a very tough guy to finish on the feet. I think, again, Yagshimuradov does win with these exchanges on the feet. I think, again, he might be on upset alert, if I'm being honest. I would not be surprised if Biyong pulls it off. But I am willing to bank on the fact that Yagshimuradov is able to win the fight. Again, it wouldn't surprise me if Biyong's able to do it. I just think Yagshimuradov's a better striker. I know Biyong's got a lot of power, but Yagshimuradov has dealt with that before. Again, everyone's got power at 205. I think Yagshimuradov does get it done, and I think he wins the fight by unanimous decision. So give me Dufort to get those 9 points, putting himself in second place. As we move on to our next one here, sticking in the light heavyweight division, this is what I was talking about earlier. They are weeding someone out. Rob Wilkinson, Josh Silveira. This is the matchup here. Both these guys have 6 points. Someone's getting eliminated with the loss. Again, all the other guys are fighting. Again, Carlos Jr., Yagshimuradov, Kasanganay are all fighting guys who have 0 points. Wilkinson and Silveira are fighting each other, and they both have 6. Now, Josh Silveira, again, won by injury against Sadabusi. He didn't really win the fight, but again, in the record books, it goes down as a first-round finish for Silveira, which is a quick 6. Okay. Now he gets Rob Wilkinson, who is good, who is coming off, again, his championship in 2022. He beats Omari Akhmedov in the championship. Again, he comes back in 2023, beats Thiago Santos, who is definitely washed. But again, he gets popped for performance-enhancing drugs. Now here he is in 2024. He was supposed to fight Phil Davis to start up the season. Fight got canceled. He gets Tom Breese instead. He beats him by first-round knockout in 70 seconds. Again, he did what he was supposed to do. Now Wilkinson gets Silveira. I think Wilkinson's better than Silveira. I think it's going to take him a while to get the finish. I'm going to say second round TKO because I literally watched a fight where Josh Silveira ate bombs from Impa Kasanganay for 25 minutes and stayed in there and stood and didn't, go away. I watched that with Silveira. I think the guy's got a chin. I think eventually, though, Wilkinson's going to get to him. Not to say Wilkinson's got more power than Kasanganay. I just think the matchup, again, Wilkinson's going to be looking for the finish. Not necessarily the same thing Kasanganay was looking for in the championship fight with Silveira. Again, Kasanganay knew he was up 3 rounds at the time. He knew he was up 2 rounds. Like, again, he didn't need to chase the finish. Kasanganay was able to go out there and win a 25-minute decision. Wilkinson's looking for the finish for his spot in the playoffs, for positioning in the standings. Again, I think he will get Silveira eventually. I think Silveira, he's still a somewhat green striker who's able to outpower some of these lower level guys. Like Martin Hamlet, who's not the best striker. He's able to just, again, outpower them and just, again, swarm him on the feet and beat him. Wilkinson's he's just a very good striker as a whole who's been there and done that. He does have a ground game if he needs to go to it as well, but I wouldn't, again, think that's the path to victory for him against a guy like Silveira who's got the jiu-jitsu and who has the wrestling. Again, the guy's literally the son of Conan Silveira, who is one of the head coaches at American Top Team in Coconut Creek. But I just think Wilkinson boxes his head off in this fight. Again, we saw the power in his last fight against Tom Breese. I think we see it again tonight or on Friday night. I think he is able to go out there and pick up the second round knockout finish against Josh Silveira. As we look at the standings, it puts him in second place. Okay, right? So Antonio Carlos Jr. has almost locked up the first seed. We'll see how the Impa Kasanganay fight goes. But for Josh Silveira, he's basically eliminated with this loss. Again, he needs Impa to lose. That's how he would stick. That's how he would stay in the playoffs. But let's just be honest, Kasanganay's got a very favorable matchup coming up. For Rob Wilkinson, 6 points in his first fight, 5 points in his second fight, puts him with 11 as a whole in second place. Again, it locks up his spot in the playoffs. I just think he's the better striker. Wilkinson should be able to go out there and eventually finish Silveira. I wouldn't be surprised if the fight goes the distance, I'll be honest. But if it does, he'll have 9 points. And really, the seeding doesn't change if he gets the win by decision. He'll stay in second place regardless. He will have more points than Yagshimuradov because of his last finish. So regardless, I feel good about where we're at with Wilkinson and where we're placing him in the standings. Next fight, to the lightweight division, Patricky Pitbull taking on Bruno Miranda. I don't know why this fight's so high on the card. It's two guys who are basically eliminated unless a first-round finish happens in this fight. That's the way one of these guys gets in the playoffs. Because Rabadanov, again, has 2 decision victories. That totals for 6 points. A first-round knockout victory out of Patricky Pitbull or Bruno Miranda or submission victory would have more weight in the standings than Rabadanov's 2 decision victories. Think what you want of it. It encourages finishes. However, I don't think we get the first round finish in this fight. I actually think we get a second round finish out of Patricky Pitbull. I think he does finish Miranda. I do think he's the better striker. I've never been all that impressed with Patricky Pitbull, I'll be honest with you. The guy's lost 3 out of 4 fights, and this is a guy who is the former Bellator world champion. If you want to date back all the way to 2019, okay, the guy has lost, quick math in my head, he has lost 5 out of his last 7 fights. And this is a guy who, in that little run, was the former Bellator champion. Now, he's better than Bruno Miranda. I think he is. Miranda's another one of these guys who has got a lot of pop on the feet. Look at him. He's a very strong and physical guy. But I feel like it's almost a mirror match. I think it is. Both these guys really can't grapple for the life of them. You saw that in Miranda's last fight where he got submitted by Primus. Again, Patricky Pitbull has been finished on the ground before as well. And really just that's not what he does. He's a striker. He wants to brawl. They are, again, it's kind of a mirror match in a certain way, right? Both these guys are in that 5'8"-ish range of their height. I think Miranda's a little bit taller than Patricky Pitbull, but they kind of have the same build. Miranda's one of these guys who's training out of Thailand, right? He's one of those Muay Thai guys. Again, Patricky Pitbull fighting out of Brazil. He's from that, again, Pitbull camp with his brother Patricio. I think Patricky is the better striker, and ultimately this fight will not matter because 5 points doesn't put you anywhere. It puts Patricky in 5th place behind Rabadanov, and I don't think he gets his finish quicker than what Clay Collard did in his last fight. So it does eliminate Patricky Pitbull, but it does put him in 5th place. Again, I think he's able to get to the chin of Miranda here. Miranda's lost back-to-back fights. You look at his loss to Oliveira Ben Mercier in 2023, then his submission loss to Brent Primus in his last fight. He got finished by knockout last in Road FC in 2017. Again, he just got finished. Last time he got finished on the feet. Again, OAM finished him with ground and pound. Miranda's been he's been finished before. Patricky has 2. I think it's whoever finds the chin quicker, but I don't think it happens in the first round. I think it happens in the second round, and I do think that's where Patricky gets it done. Giving Patricky Pitbull to win the fight by second round TKO. He will have 5 points in the PFL lightweight standings, but again, it does not put him in the playoffs. It's just a victory, and again, you're looking to win the fight. Look at our guy Liton Vassell in his last fight where he beat Vlatin Moldavsky. He's mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, but he's still looking to get the victory, and that's what he did against a playoff guy in Moldavsky. We go on to the co-main event in the light heavyweight division. This is where we're going to find out the rest of the matchups in the light heavyweight division. Impa Kasanganay, Jakob Nedoh. I feel like this is one of the most obvious picks on the card. Kasanganay by first round knockout. Again, if you haven't watched the channel before, I am the biggest Impa Kasanganay fan. I love Impa Kasanganay. I've been a fan of this guy since his UFC run. Again, I liked this guy when he was fighting on the Contender Series. And I'm so happy, again, that he's in this position with the PFL rather than him fighting on undercards in the UFC. Again, he has developed himself from not being just the guy who got spinning back kicked in the head by Joaquin Buckley. Arguably, I'd say Kasanganay would win a fight against Joaquin Buckley at 185 pounds right now. It's fine, though. Kasanganay's in the PFL, and he's just running through these guys at 205 pounds. Just look what he's been able to do. Again, he had his championship season in 2023. He beats Hamlet by first round knockout in the first round of the playoffs. He beats Josh Silveira after that. He got robbed against Johnny Eblen in Saudi Arabia in the PFL Bellator card. He beat Eblen. He won the first rounds. I will die on that hill. And then he beats Alex Polizzi in his last fight by first round knockout. Kasanganay is able to just swarm guys in the feet. Seriously, his striking is so developed. He's got the defensive wrestling now, too, to back himself up. And Kasanganay can get every fight where he wants it. And truly, I don't know who beats this guy in the PFL right now. If Impa Kasanganay went to the UFC, he'd be a top 10 light heavyweight. That's how good this guy is right now. He's been a little bit chinny in the past, sure. But really, that hasn't, come back to bite him in the PFL yet. I think 205 is his weight class. I think maybe he would want to fight at 85. But really, he's been just melting guys at 205 pounds. There's no weight cut for him. He's a very strong and big guy now. And when you look at this fight with Jakob Nedoh, the first thing that sticks out to you is, well, Nedoh just got finished by knockout 2 months ago. Right away, Kasanganay would win this fight regardless, I think. But now you get a guy in Nedoh who was just knocked out. What is Kasanganay gonna do to him? The guy who's got the most power in the weight class, who's able to melt guys. It doesn't bode well for Jakob Nedoh. This fight, I don't think, is going longer than a minute. I think Kasanganay starches him and punches his ticket in the playoffs. That's how good this guy is right now. Again, we talked about it a little bit when we were talking about Yagshimuradov and Simon Biyong. How good it was Jakob Nedoh and how good truly is the PFL Europe season. Well, again, Nedoh lost to a guy that was, borderline top 10 in Bellator, who went, 3-4 in Bellator in Yagshimuradov. Again, I don't know if PFL Europe was really the greatest. And Nedoh got, again, absolutely starched in his first fight against Yagshimuradov. What is Kasanganay going to do to him? Impa's going to melt him. He's got so much pop in his shots. He can wrestle too, which I don't think he's going to go to because, again, the easiest pathway to victory for Kasanganay in this fight is through the knockout. And he's just going to get it done pretty easily. I've seen it before with him recently. Again, since his UFC days, he's been able to knock out Jared Gooden in the first round, able to knock out Osama Al-Saidi by first round, again, in the first round. He's able to knock out Martin Hamlin in the first round. Alex Polizzi in his last fight. He's going to do more of the same to Jakob Nedoh, a guy, again, who just got knocked out in his last fight. And when you look at it, I think Kasanganay puts himself in first place on the table. I think he does. I think Kasanganay gets 12 points and is in first place. I think he does it quicker than what Carlos Jr. has done it. Carlos Jr., excuse me. It might have sounded like I said Carlos Jr. right there. But I think Impa gets it done. I think he gets his 12 points. And now, again, the PFL light heavyweight matchups are decided. You have Impa Kasanganay with 12 points in first place. He will be taking on the number 4 seed in Dufort and Yagshimuradov. And then you've got a very interesting matchup with Antonio Carlos Jr. and Rob Wilkinson in the 2-3 matchup. But Kasanganay with 12, Carlos Jr. with 12, Wilkinson with 11, Yagshimuradov with 9. That's your playoffs. I do think Kasanganay, again, is the best guy in this weight class, and we will see it. I think he does beat Yagshimuradov, and we'll see what happens once we get to the championship fight, whether he gets Wilkinson or Antonio Carlos Jr. Now let's round things down the lightweight division. Clay Collard taking on Mads Burnell. I was disappointed in Mads Burnell's last fight. I'll be honest with you. I thought he was going to beat Michael Dufort. maybe Mads Burnell's not the guy we once thought he was. And maybe I should have thought that in the Adam Borch fight, right? Maybe I should have saw it when he lost by decision. I don't know, right? He lost a 5-round decision to Borch, and Borch, again, is all right. He's fighting again in the featherweight division. We'll see what he does against Brett Johns next week. But I think Mads Burnell's a horrible matchup. He just sees a horrible matchup in this fight with Clay Collard. Collard should box the brakes off him in this fight. I don't think Burnell gets it down. Again, Clay Collard's coming off of that TKO victory over Pitbull in his last fight. The way to beat Collard is by getting him down. AJ McKee did it. McKee finished him in 70 seconds with his triangle armbar in Saudi Arabia on that PFL Bellator card. And again, OAM was able to neutralize Collard with his wrestling too. That is the way to beat him, but I don't know how much Mads Burnell has left in the tank. He just hasn't looked like the same guy as of late. Again, he's lost 3 out of 5. Borch Carvalho's the fight that really sticks out. Yeah, he beats Justin Gonzalez and Daniel Weichel, but man, Mads Burnell just hasn't looked like the same guy I thought he was coming out of the UFC. And after he went on that little run in Cage Warriors and came into Bellator, he's coming off that Emmanuel Sanchez victory. I was so high on Burnell going into the Adam Borch fight, and he loses it. Again, I think Collard keeps the fight standing, and Mads Burnell just won't be able to hang on the feet with Clay Collard. Former pro boxer and Collard, that's what he does. We look at the pick, we're going 3rd round TKO finish for Clay Collard in this fight. I think eventually he will get the stoppage. Again, Burnell can't get the fight on the ground. That doesn't bode well for him because Clay Collard eventually will get him out in there on the feet. That's what he does. Collard will box him to pieces. So with that being said, Clay Collard will pick up 4 more points. He had 5 in his first fight. 5 plus 4 is 9. He will have 9 total and be in 2nd place in the PFL standings. Again, we said at the beginning of this video, Michael Dufort with his points likely will not be caught up to in 1st place. He won't be. Clay Collard will be in 2nd with 9. Brent Primus will be in 3rd with 8. And Gadzi Rabadanov will hold on in 4th place with 6 points. Again, the one way he would be out would be if Mads Burnell got a 1st round finish over Clay Collard or Pitbull or Bruno Miranda ended up getting that 1st round finish as well. I don't think any of that happens. I think Rabadanov does stay in 4th with 6 points, giving us the playoff matchups of Michael Dufort, Gadzi Rabadanov, and Clay Collard versus Brent Primus. But in this fight, again, I think Collard does box the brakes off of Mads Burnell, and I think he makes it very difficult for Burnell to really get anything going, because again, I do like the defensive wrestling game out of Clay Collard in this fight. I don't think Burnell's able to get the takedowns, and if he's not able to get the takedowns, he is a sitting it duck on the feet. So cashes Clay Collard, advances to the playoffs with 9 points. And folks, thank you all for watching our PFL number 5 predictions here on the channel with the lightweights and the light heavyweights. If you did enjoy the video, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video too. We'll be back. I don't know if the Bellator video is coming out later today. It might come tomorrow. Again, I'm kind of tight on time right now. We'll see what happens. But check out the UFC Saudi Arabia predictions posted to the channel yesterday. Link is in the description down below. And again, stay tuned for more PFL coming at you next week. UFC every single week as well. And Bellator whenever the hell they decide to have cards, which again is this week. So stay tuned to that, folks. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Thanks for watching. And Mamba.